Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the KDLA webinar, After School Programming, Public Library, School Partnerships, and Beyond. My name is Krista King-Oaks. I am the Youth Services Consultant with the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives, and presenting this webinar today with our colleague Lauren Brandstetter, Children's Programmer at the Covington Branch of the Kenton County Public Library. Just a reminder for those listening to the recording that you will be able to download the slides as well as participate in the survey at the end of today's webinar to provide feedback to IMLS that continues supporting of training such as today's webinar. If you have any need for technical assistance or support with your audio during today's webinar, please let me know in the chat, as well as go to the audio wizard setup in the main toolbar at the top of today's screen. Also, I will be watching the chat for questions throughout the training for our presenter. Looks like there's been a lot of good material. I will go ahead and transition to our webinar slides. And actually, let me see if I can pull back up our poll that we started today's discussion with. Let me pull that away from the chat box, just so we get kind of a good idea of everybody who is joining us today. We asked the discussion question, how many after-school programs does your library do each week? And it looks like we're about half and half. So about half of us are conducting 3 or more programs each week, while the other half is just beginning, kind of dipping their toes in the water. So with that, I will turn over the training to Lauren. Take it away.
Thank you, Krista. Like she said, my name is Lauren Brandstetter. I am a children's programmer at the Kenton County Public Library. I work at the Covington Branch, and I am just so excited to kind of delve deeper into the library world. I've been working here since 2015. I actually took over for Krista herself. She had my position before me. And I'm just excited to kind of, like I said, delve deeper into the library world, and I'd like to thank her for giving me the opportunity to present to you all today. Just making sure everybody can hear me as well. Just put something in the chat to make sure. So an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We are going to go over both in-house and outreach programming. Of course, we have all come up against problems, the infamous program fails, and I'm just really interested to kind of chat with you guys about what's worked for you, what has not worked, and kind of give you some brainstorms that we've had at my branch, and also hopefully maybe get some brainstorms from you guys as well, because I know that's one of the things that probably all of us think about way more than we want to is how can we increase these numbers, how can we get more patrons and more children interested in what we're doing at the library and get them excited about library services. So we'll talk about some of the ideas that we've used for changing up some of our programs, just so that we can reach more people, and also what we've done to physically even reach those patrons that are not coming on our doors. It looks like a couple people cannot hear. If you want to check on that, Krista. Like Taryn says she can't hear. All right. So our in-house numbers they're kind of in flux. So, and I'm sure that a lot of you experience this as well, where you'll run certain programs and they'll do great, and then you'll run it again a few months later or maybe a year later, and it just flops, and you have no idea why, and you blame the weather, you blame, everything else except for, your program, because you don't want your program to be a failure. So we just kind of we're looking at what happened in those programs, whether it was the structure, whether it was the timing, could people not get to our programs, and then talking about how to change up the format a little bit and reach those patrons in a better way. And just overall, we all know that the libraries the world of libraries is changing. We're not being used in the same way we've been used in the past. And, there was a whole NPR series in 2013 about public libraries and, how they were changing and, branching out with modern makeovers and being more tech savvy. There was even one piece that said, for you to borrow, some libraries have to go begging. We haven't gotten to that point quite yet, but it feels like sometimes with the programs themselves, we kind of have to beg sometimes. So we also have a separate outreach department. I saw somebody at the beginning talking about how they have after-school programming, kind of like a cycle, and they go to centers. We have a outreach department that does some of our preschool outreach. They do like rainbow childcare and that kind of thing. But we do the outreach for the school-age children. So I'll talk about later about how we were partnering with our local schools for their after-school programs and things like that. So I just wanted to kind of specify that we are not an outreach department. We do have a separate department, but that's not what I'm doing today. All right. So some of the problems that we came up against were, like I mentioned before, time. We just didn't know if it was a bad time for parents to bring children to the library, or a lot of times we don't even see a lot of parents. My library is in Covington, which is very close to Cincinnati. It's practically a little urban center of its own, and a lot of our children walk. They'll come right after school, and they have working parents, and we don't see them a lot of times. And with the formatting of our programs, because we don't see as many parents, sometimes that forces us kind of to change up the way we do programs. So there's definitely some programs that are kind of hard to do when you're the only adult in the room. That leads to maybe some more behavior problems, some turnover from the kids as they kind of age out and decide that they're too cool for you, and they go up to the teen room, that kind of thing. So we were just trying to figure out, what would appeal to more kids that we were actually getting, because we were trying to plan for the people that we wanted to come in, and we really probably should have been focusing on the kids that we had. The setting became really important as well, where our programming room is kind of back in a corner. It's a beautiful room. It's got wonderful sliding doors that we can open up if we want to, but it is kind of hidden, to be quite honest. So we learned, that doing some programming out on the floor and in our new makerspace area, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, kind of made our programs a little bit more visible. And, sometimes we'll just, even if they weren't coming over to the physical program, if we were, working on something at the desk, or we were prepping for a program at the desk, we'd have kids saying, "What are you doing? Can I do it?" And we kind of took that and said, well, maybe if we just sit out in the department and start working on a craft, they'll be interested. Or we start working on building something in our makerspace, maybe they'd be interested. So the setting definitely changed our outlook on, we don't have to have everything in that program room. The prep and PR/interest, that kind of goes together, where the programs that are listed on your screen right now, the Giant Jumanji, Cape Town, and the Poke-Palooza for Pokemon, those are all larger programs that we started setting up, well, not Poke-Palooza because I haven't done that one yet, but we started setting those up with about a month in advance. And Jumanji was so huge that we basically decorated the entire department from top to bottom in leaves and vines and animals and just anything else that we could get our hands on that looked jungle-ish. And it really helped when people walked into our space and it looked completely different, and they were like, wow, what's going on? and they would ask at the desk. So it kind of did some of our PR for us. It was kind of free advertising that we didn't even have to think about. With Cape Town, we did a week-long program where we kind of had it open every day, and that's something I forgot to mention when I was talking about time. We did more drop-in programs where it was an open format. So like Jumanji, we did from 12 to 3, and they could come and play anytime in that gap there. And then for Cape Town, we had it open for a whole week. So it almost became a passive program at that point, at least for Cape Town, where we had the floors with pieces of masking tape on it, designed as roads, and we had cardboard boxes that were our city buildings, and they were able to drive around the town and rearrange the cardboard boxes and just, be toddlers and destroy them. But it went over really, really well, and we got over 200 people, I think, at that program within a week. So if we had that, if we did Cape Town as an after-school program, or maybe during the day if it was for younger kids, maybe we would have gotten 20 people, 30 people, I don't know. But just extending that and making it into a program that could stay out on the floor a little bit longer, we, double, triple, 10 times over increased our attendance in that. Excuse me. So yeah, we've really had a lot of great success on some of the programs that we've been able to just kind of change up how we present them. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with the Pokemon program yet. The suggestions are much appreciated because I had a whole plan, and then my coworker unfortunately moved to a different position at a school, so I don't know what I'm going to do now. So if anyone has any great Pokemon ideas, feel free to drop them in the chat box. All right, so one thing that we've done really well with, which kind of goes hand in hand with those bigger programs that we were holding out kind of on the floor, was passive programming. I was just wondering how many of you have tried passive programs, what kind of passive programs you've done, because we have found that it really, really works for us because it's kind of continuous programming. Like I said, with the Cape Town, it kind of works for you when you're not there. I didn't have to be physically on the floor the entire time. Other people could kind of run it for me and just kind of keep an eye on it. It's also it can be a great icebreaker. It can kind of help you get to know your patrons a little bit better. I'll give you some examples in a minute, but it kind of lets you dabble in things that you're not sure about. You can kind of test the waters and see what their response is going to be without spending a lot of time or effort on it. It's typically low impact on staff. Like I said, you can kind of set it and forget it. Anyone on staff can pretty much run it as long as give them the rundown. But it's really something that everyone can kind of take a little bit of stock in, but it also doesn't take a lot of training. It might take some setup on the front end, but like I said, you do it and then it works for you. And then one of the biggest things for us was engaging those patrons when they were there. Like we've had, I'm sure you guys have as well, had issues with, well, right after school isn't working for us. We're not seeing those kids come in like we used to. So, let's have it go for the entire evening or the entire week or the entire month, and we can catch them when they are in the building. And I put in theory in parentheses because this is a huge disclaimer, but in theory, busy kids usually leads to fewer behavioral problems. Not none, but hopefully fewer because they'll have something to do and they're not as bored. So we've tried a couple different types of programs. Oops, there we go. So we've done things like voting, which I was talking about icebreakers, so you can kind of get an idea of what your patrons like. We did a huge, in March we usually do a huge program called Book Madness after March Madness, and we make a big bulletin board with a bracket on it, and we pit book characters against each other. So we'll have everybody from Elephant and Piggy to Pete the Cat and a Pigeon and Harry Potter, and we usually do a picture book bracket or a picture book conference and a chapter book conference, and then they duke it out, and then it kind of gives us some insight into what books they like and what characters they like, and especially we're a large library, so I don't have a ton of say in what I order, but I can pass that along to my my children's book selector and tell her, hey, we had Dogman win the entire thing, and buy more Dogman books. But especially for a smaller library, you could get that information instantly. We've done scavenger hunts, where on this slide here you can see the thing called your Pokedex, which is a Pokemon scavenger hunt that I did. I printed out like 5 or 6 different versions of this Pokedex, and they have the Pokemon in shadow, and they have to try to find the 8 Pokemon that are on their sheet. I just printed them out and laminated them and hid them around the library, just a little piece of paper. I stuck it to the shelves or, wherever I could find a spot for them that the toddlers wouldn't get to it. And they had to find the Pokemon and write down the name of them and turn it in, and they won a Pokemon card with a protective sleeve, which they thought was the coolest thing. And it was honestly just leftover Pokemon cards that one of my coworkers' kids didn't want anymore, so it was like super low cost for me to do, and the kids really, really liked it. So I have my stash of Pokemon cards. I'll probably do that again in September for that program I was talking about, because it went over really well. We've done a Rogue One Star Wars scavenger hunt where we chopped up the plans to the Death Star and hid them around, and they had to find it. We did a Harry Potter Horcrux hunt where they had to find all 7 of the Horcruxes in order. The thing about scavenger hunts, I found anyway, is that you can bend them around to pretty much any theme you want them to be. Checkout incentives. We've done everything from make Mr. Chaz, my coworker, dress up like a book character. He ended up dressing up like Pinkalicious. It was pretty funny. There's photo evidence. A Lego community build, where every time they checked out a book, they got to add a Lego to a structure. That was a lot of fun, and that's just a really easy way to keep a stat on that as well. Open play is kind of what I was talking about, having things available whenever. We did, if you in the bottom right corner here, we did a library putt-putt, which doesn't really sound passive because you have to set everything up, but again, you can set it up and then you can go and do something else because it's kind of self-sufficient. We had one of our part-time staff was very artistic, so she gave us some of her artistic skills for drawing George there and some penguins and things like that. So that was really fun to kind of get her involved as well. We've also done a ninja training where we put crepe paper across the shelves and made them like dodge the lasers, and they had big giant punching balloons that they had to punch and dodge and get around, and I folded origami ninja stars and they had to throw them into buckets, things like that. And that was something that I just set up one day, kind of quote-unquote after school, like the traditional after-school time around like 4 o'clock. And then I left that up for the entire evening because I was there until 9 that night. And they just played into the evening. And so I scooped up so many more people than I would have had I just had it for an hour, at least at my branch. We also have some reading challenges. I know everyone's just coming off of the heels of summer reading. I'm sure you guys do this reading logs and all that good stuff. But we've extended those to different times of the year. We do a winter reading challenge. We've called it Seasons Readings. And last year we did a paper chain kind of idea where they had to write the book that they read on a strip of paper, and then we made a big paper chain out of it and decorated the entire department. A couple years ago, we did Giant Candyland, which was very similar to that Giant Jumanji game I was talking about, where we flipped the entire department and made it into Candyland, and there was paper lollipops all over the place, and gingerbread men and everything else you can think of. And we did a Candyland reading challenge to kind of tie into that, so we were just compounding our numbers on top of each other, where we were trying to get interest for our big Candyland program, but then at the same time we were getting some programming numbers from this reading challenge that we did, which looked like a Candyland board, and they had to fill in the squares as they went along. The I Spy was one of the bulletin boards that we did. That's down there on the left. We just glued about everything we could think of to a bulletin board, and one of our part-timers came up with cute little poems, you know, like in the I Spy books, that they had to find, you know, a red starfish here and shoot dice, and you know, it rhymed, it was cute, it was much better than I could do. So we were very appreciative for her input there. That was very well received. The kids loved finding them every day, and that was nice that we could do it more than once. It wasn't like the kids could do it when they were there and then that was it. They could come back and play every day. And then the Can You Find, I'm sure everyone has heard of the infamous Elf on the Shelf. Our elf was on the shelf, was on the checkout stations, it was everywhere. So we hit our elf, and the first person to find the elf every day got put in for a raffle, and then they got a sticker, which they still loved as well. So that was an easy way to keep track of that. Some odds and ends that we've done as well for past programming. We do Letters to Santa every year, which is a collaboration with our park district. They write back the children as if they were Santa, which is really fun. And then we also do a big sorting hat quiz for our Harry Potter month, where we use our button maker, which is a great way to promote our maker space and our button maker that lives there, and made house buttons for everybody, and they would take the quiz and then get sorted into their house. So that was a lot of fun as well. So for you guys, I was just wondering how you guys think you can apply passive element to something that you're already doing, because that's something that's worked really well for us. Like I said, when we were already doing that big Candyland program, we said, hey, let's do a reading challenge and kind of double down, excuse me, kind of double down on what we were already doing. And I know this isn't a traditional, quote-unquote, after-school program, but I did want to make sure that I passed along this passive program information, because it has really been something that we have kind of leaned on in this weird flux that we're in right now, where we don't have a ton of kids coming in for our after-school programs. So we've kind of had to fill in for what we're lacking in numbers. All right, Libby's talking about she has an I Spy table in a scavenger hunt. Awesome. Sensory passive programs. Ooh, Jennifer, I'd love to hear more about your sensory passive programs. That sounds like fun. Art passive program, just out of art supplies, let them be creative. Yeah, we have a weekly craft kit that I forgot to mention that's worked really well for us. Even if you don't feel like making a huge mess, sometimes I've just ordered Oriental Trading craft kits and put them out just for something for the kids to do. And a lot of times they have pieces that are already self-adhesive or things like that, so you don't even have to get out like the glue or just paint or anything and make it super messy out on the floor, because I don't know about you guys, but we have carpet, so we can't put out a ton of messy items. So I Spy board that's portable and reusable. I wonder if you could do that on a poster board, Sharon, like not a poster board, but like a trifold, and you could bring it with you and you could glue the items to the trifold. That would be cool. Let's see. A boredom box in the teen area, says Beth. It's passive program ideas options. Awesome. That sounds great. I would love to hear more about what's in your boredom box, Beth. That's wonderful. Oh, you're welcome, Sharon. That's what we're all here for. It's all kind of a big brainstorming party today, I suppose, because I think I speak for most of us when I say that this is what we think of most of the time, like what can I do to fix these programs? What can I do to bring in more kids? And what can I do to, like Beth was saying, kind of help with the discipline and the boredom issues? Because I don't know about your kids, but the kids that come here, especially in the summer, they're on the computers for way too long. They get bored. They don't know that they're bored, and then they start going at each other. So that's when we say, hey, have you seen our such and such program? Which is great, again, for passive programming because it's always out there. It's not like, oh, well, these kids are bored now, but we have a program at 3. So that's kind of, I've really come to love passive programming because it can be a little bit more on the fly as well, and that's worked better for us. Okay. Anything else about portable magnet dry erase boards? That's a good idea as well. I like that. All right, so moving to passive outreach, which I put in quotes because you take it with a grain of rice because you do have to be there the entire time and monitor what's going on. But again, it's kind of like you can sit there and there's extra things going on around you that you don't always have to have your hands in 100% of the time. So just some things, again, we're just trying to fill in some of our gaps from our after-school programs that have failed. I've sat out in the department or in the program room at 4 o'clock on Mondays trying to do an art program like for the last, I don't know how many weeks, and just I get 1 or 2 people, and it's just so frustrating. So we've had to kind of go out for some of our numbers as well. So we've done partnerships with our local Parks and Rec department, where we've gone out to and done their Easter egg hunt and provided programming there. We've done a story walk out at the parks. We don't have a permanent one. I would love to do a permanent one. I think that would be amazing. I know some libraries do that. And unfortunately, I did not snap a picture of my own story walk, so this is a library in New York that did, I think it's I Don't Want to Be a Frog. And that's, I love that book. So that's just an example. We just put it on yard signs and put them on the lawn where the kids were coming in to go to the egg hunt. We're very involved in School Ready Fest, helping the teachers and kids get ready for the year. We're kind of balancing that right now. Devou Grass, we have a big, huge park called Devou Park, and they would do a bluegrass festival. Unfortunately, they're taking a break this year, so we're not doing that this time around, but it's been a nice place to do, whether it's just like kind of an impromptu story time or do some crafts out in the community, but usually it's kind of hands-off, like kind of come up and do it when you want to do it kind of craft, where we can kind of be visible in the community as well and hopefully get more people aware of the library and their services. I'm sorry about the picture covering the farmers market. It was not like that when I sent it to Krista. But the Covington Farmers Market, we partnered with them as well, had a table, had some portable sensory bins and things we brought to that. And then the picture that is covering those words there is from a Girl Scout bridging event that we've actually partnered with Girl Scouts of Western Ohio and Girl Scouts Kentucky Wilderness Road. And they do a giant bridging event where they actually walk on the bridge over the Ohio River, which is a really cool thing because if you have any Girl Scout background, when you move from one level to another, it's called bridging. So they were actually able to walk over the bridge, which I thought was really neat. So we were there, and we brought, I don't know how well you can see it, but we brought our button maker, and the girls were able to make buttons. Again, a good advertisement for our makerspace and different things that we've done at the library. All right. What kind of outreach have you guys done, and has it gone beyond school outreach, or is that kind of where your wheelhouse has been? I'm curious. And also a when is something I'm curious too about, when you're doing these outreach programs, because some of these programs we do in an after-school kind of fashion, and I'll talk about our after-school partnerships after this slide, but we've had to kind of move away from, like I said, the traditional time just because we weren't getting people. So the 21st Century Learning Center grants, I saw that up higher up in the feed too. That's awesome. The book club, okay, homework help. Grinch story time. Ryan got dyed green. 400 people. That's amazing. Was that an outreach program, Ryan? Because that sounds amazing. Botanical gardens. That's cool too. That would be an amazing place to have a story time. You could do a garden story time or butterflies. That'd be great. It was out of school. Very cool. Very nice. All right. 4th of July and Christmas, that's a great way to kind of piggyback on those. Yes, Alexandria, that we have come up against the same issues with transportation, because a lot of our working parents, they'll use the bus or they will be at work while their kids are fending for themselves after school, and the kids usually walk, and if they can't walk down here, then they're out of luck, unfortunately. Yes, everyone does love the button maker. You're right, Beth. The girls were so excited. We brought, I think, 5 different designs for them to do. We brought the Girl Scout logo, like an emoji. I made a little logo that says "I love books," and I think the NASA logo, because they were working on space badges, which was perfect because our summer reading theme was space as well. So they loved making those. All right, so switching gears a little bit, we're actually into the main part of the meat of the school partnership part of my presentation. This is actually the part that Krista saw me present at an NKU after-school special, where I went to talk to teachers to tell them about public library partnerships and how we could partner with them and how they could partner with us and make more connections so that the kids could get our services. So that was kind of the basis for this webinar, and I added some extra here. So here's the school service part of it. So we, as I said before, we were identifying those in our community that were not coming to the library and why they weren't coming to the library and what we could do about it. So some of our public schools are really hard to get into during the day. I don't know about the schools around you guys, but a lot of our public schools especially are dealing with, they're dealing with the standards that they have to meet. They're dealing with testing. They're dealing with lots of things that they have to get through for the public school system, and they really tend to not have a lot of time to devote to a librarian coming in. And that's a real shame, especially in the Covington Independent School District that we serve, because they do not have library services, consistent library services in their schools. I think they only have one librarian through all their elementary buildings, like one actual certified librarian. So it became an issue of when can we get in without disrupting and stressing out these teachers who have so much to get through anyway. For instance, I am assigned to one of the public schools that's a little bit further away from us, that we don't see a lot of their kids all the time. And we all go at the beginning of the year. We kind of introduce ourselves to the kindergartens. We give every kindergartner in Kenton County between our 3 branches a kindergarten kit that has different things in it for them to learn how to use our library and sign up for a library card. They all get a free book, which is wonderful. But sometimes that is where our service ended. We went into those schools and the teachers were like, great, thanks for the free stuff. See you maybe at the end of the year when I'm through all of my things. And that was, like I said, that was just a shame to everyone, I think. We were disappointed. The teachers were disappointed that they couldn't get us in more often. So the after-school programs kind of became the next best thing. So we formed a partnership with the Covington Independent Schools, and we also reached out to a few other public schools, including Ludlow, Kenton County, and Erlanger-Ellesmere for our Erlanger branch, and have started working in their after-school programs with them. Some of them have been, it was like the easiest process in the entire world because they were so desperate for help after school, and they were so desperate for more library services that they said, yes, please come and provide library services and programming after school, because not only were they feeling overwhelmed, but they knew that those students were lacking that service. And we saw that as well. So we were more than happy to partner with them. So some of the things that we've done with those schools, I will give you some examples on the next couple slides of the STEM kits and STREAM programs that we brought out, which were really a great way for us to do, it was kind of having a program in a box so that we didn't have to think about what we were going to bring every time. We could just grab a box and go, grab some books that went with it, and then do kind of a story time and then have some open play afterward, which honestly for a lot of these school children is really, really important because they don't get a lot of this open play or imaginative play, just again because of all the standards that they're held to, and honestly with some of the lower income students, they just don't get that kind of play at home either. So we also have we've also put together like deposit collections, given them honor books that just books from our collections that either we've weeded or don't specifically need back, and loan those out to their after schools. We just took a big stack of old board games that we no longer use that they really, really could use in the after school programs. Things that we can kind of, not quite circulation, but again, getting those books and that material into those kids' hands became the most important stuff for us. My boss, she did a book club at one of our elementary schools with, it's like a stone's throw from the library. She did a book club with the third graders and basically just read the book in the after-school program with them because it was very hard to get them to do any of the reading on their own. So she just kind of read with them. She had them take turns reading, sometimes even had it up on either an Overdrive or a Libby kind of ebook app on a screen so that they could read along. And that worked pretty well for her. And then also with FRCs, Family Resource Centers is something that's pretty common in our school districts. I don't know about yours, but we all the public schools around us have an FRC coordinator who works with the community to get the families the resources that they need. And they've partnered with us to do, they do a Halloween party at the Covington Branch every year. They sometimes have their meetings here, or we'll go to their meetings at the schools to find out how else we can support them. Yeah, food is very important. We are currently in a gap because I don't know if you guys heard, but our Covington independent schools that I was talking about, they were supposed to go back today, and they had some maintenance issues with a couple of the buildings, and now they are going back the Tuesday after Labor Day. So I'm glad everyone's having a nice time relaxing after summer reading. I'm not done yet. We have the federal feed site that would come and provide food through the federal government, but that ran out, so we had to go and then reach out to the United Methodist Church. They have a food ministry in Cincinnati, and they actually are coming over the river to help out and helping us with the food gap for the next 2 weeks, which has been fantastic. And also, due to that, we've had to come up with a couple extra programs as well to kind of fill in that service gap. So that's kind of another thing that we weren't anticipating on tackling this summer. And it's not quite after school, and but it is directly due to something that happened with the schools and with those school children. So we're hoping that, we're peppering in a couple movies here and a couple makerspace activities, a tie-dye program, some things like that, just things that we already kind of had in our pockets, and definitely some of that passive program I was talking about to kind of fill those gaps so that those kids, who a lot of them have working parents and, parents that can't accompany them to the library, to make sure that they have something to do. All right, so I talked about the STEM and STREAM kits. Here at Kenton County Public Library, we like to use STREAM because we have added reading into STEM, STEAM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Our new STREAM Center at our Erlanger branch is the big makerspace that you might have heard about that we just finished last year, or the beginning of this year, I guess. So our STREAM kits include anything from Legos to these two kits. The one on the left side with the two girls is called Brackets with a Z, I believe. And those have been, they're super simple, but they have been a really big hit. I don't know if it's because they were one of the newer ones that we introduced to them, and they're like, ooh, something different. But they love those. And actually, I got my first set of those off of Mindware. Mindware. I think that's the company that is affiliated with Oriental Trading, so I got it for a decent price. And if you have a Fun Express account, you can do it that way as well. And then the one on the right is called GeoPlay. I actually found those, I believe, at Joseph Best Booksellers for the first time, and then I've ordered them off of Amazon after that. And they're just geometric shapes. Whoever built this tower used only squares, but there's circles, triangles, octagons, half octagons, everything, and they all kind of click together, and they make the most ridiculous and amazing things out of them, and they're so creative. We've also brought Ozobots and our straw building kit out to the schools. These are some after-school programs in, I believe, the Covington schools. My manager has been doing a lot of these after-school partnerships, especially the ones with the kits that I mentioned, because she obviously has way more responsibility than just programming. So she has, she has to do everything that a manager has to do, but then she still wanted to help with programming, so this became a very efficient way for her to help, because she could take one of those boxes along with her and just finish her day out at the school and then go home afterward without having to plan a whole lot, without having to prep a whole lot, and she could still be involved in helping reach those kids. Ozobots, if you haven't heard of those, I'm sure you have because they've gotten pretty popular, but they're little coding robots, and you take the markers and you draw lines with them, and they will follow along the lines. You can see the one in the kind of on the right there of the left-hand picture is following that curly cue. It'll change colors based on what color you use. It's really fun for them to play, even if it doesn't always completely work with the coding coding suggestions. That piece of paper underneath the green marker in that photo has lines of code that you can draw, and it'll make it do different things like turn around or spin in a circle or something like that. It doesn't always work, but even if it doesn't work, they have a great time with those. And then on the right-hand side, it's very simple. I think they were like $10, maybe $15 for like about a bazillion of these straws and connectors. And they build, and they look really impressive. They build really tall, and the kids really like them. And they're very lightweight and easy to take with you. Thank you for posting those links, Krista. All right, so I know some of you mentioned doing your after-school programs. What kind of connections do you have with local schools that we haven't talked about yet? Is there something unique that your library system does after school? Or it could even be during school. You know, I think we're all kind of looking for ways to connect with our school children better. So if you have a great idea, feel free to put it in the box there, or something that has worked well for you. Of course, you know, different libraries, different things work for different people, but we can all benefit from ideas for sure. While you guys are typing, I did want to mention that we did have a special grant that we were awarded that really helped us with some of our programming. I unfortunately don't have any pictures of it, but we were awarded a Google grant that helped us bring technology and coding and different tech programs to the schools, where we actually partnered with Northern Kentucky University. So we also were, in a way, serving and helping our local university as well, which was, I thought, was fantastic. We basically used the grant money for supplies, but then also to give the NKU students a stipend, and they came out and they did some of the after-school programming almost for us or with us. So that was so fantastic because we were able to help college students have some almost like work-study money. And we were able to get some more tech and things into the schools that we wouldn't have been able to anyway. And it really took some of the burden off of us as well, because we were able to get those students to do, like, basically to do some of our work for us, to kind of delegate it to them. And we had a lot of students apply that were already in STEM-related majors, like engineering or math or technology, that just thrived, and they were a little bit younger. They had a lot of energy. They loved working with the kids. So that was just a fantastic way that we partnered with our schools and with our local university. And then when that grant actually ran out, we had some extra money in our computer class budget, which was just kind of ended up being a blessing in disguise, just because we didn't have a lot of people coming to our in-house computer classes. And we took some of that money and continued the program to the end of the year, so that we were still serving those schools until the end of the school year. We also have a partnership with Girls That Code. One of our digital librarians has been working with the Girls That Code program and doing that in the schools as well. And these kind of programs have even led to the schools coming to us. It's not always an option for them, but it's been a surprise, a pleasant surprise, of course, that this involvement has made them want to come here as well. I shouldn't say a surprise, because that's kind of selling ourselves short, but you know what I mean. It's these schools that haven't really, quote unquote, had time to come to us before we really put some effort into it, and now we're seeing that return. It took a little while, but we are seeing it eventually. So they're going to come to us, and I believe they're going to do some of their after-school programs here in-house. They're going to run it, but we're going to assist with the actual programming itself. So that is going to be something that's completely new for us in the fall, and I hope it goes well. All right, so storytime programs for K through 2nd, and you're doing STEM, Christina. And you're doing this in the schools. Fantastic. Yeah, library cards to teachers is so important because our system anyway, we have some fantastic teacher benefits for having a teacher card, like more or a higher checkout limit and auto renewals, things like that. Hour of Code, yeah, we did Hour of Code. One of our tech guys kind of headed that up this year, and we participated in that as well. Great. You guys are awesome. I was worried that I was going to have to pull teeth for you guys to respond, but look at all this conversation. Thank you so much. Yes. Oh, good point, Krista. Yeah, there are thematic program kits that will be at KDLA, and there are already some kits at KDLA, so if you haven't checked those out, definitely do that too. Yes, that is a good idea for a future webinar. Go where the patrons are, and then, yeah, and then figure it out. Because we've had discussions about, you know, are we going to be able to use some of our funding for buses and things like that. So that's just one of those other obstacles that we have to kind of move forward and try to overcome them. All right, so some more partnerships that we're thinking of outside of the schools. Like I said, we just participated with the Girl Scouts in their bridging event, which was very successful. We saw over 300 girls and plus their families. And then I am a Girl Scout myself. I'm a lifelong member, so I am very excited about that partnership evolving, because now that we were involved with that bridging event, we've asked about offering badge days and other programs that are specifically focused or offered for Scouts, because honestly, that's just kind of a built-in audience. You don't have to worry about how many kids you're going to get at a program when you know that a Scout troop's coming and you know that there's 15 girls that are coming your way, which I don't know about you, but that makes me feel a whole lot better. One of the outreach events I did this summer, I did a Art in the Park series at one of our local parks, and actually completely by accident, I ran into some of the instructors for our Children's Home of Northern Kentucky for at-risk youth, and they were so excited about possibly hooking up with us. I don't know why we haven't done it before, but about us coming out to their facility in Devou Park and doing some programs with them, so we can reach those youth as well. We've done programs with yoga and martial arts studios before. We're thinking about doing some, local restaurants or breweries. I mean, breweries I never would have guessed, but are such a family thing, especially in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. We have a very thriving brewery circuit around here, and I really hope that we can maybe do some story times or some other programming at breweries. I know that's not necessarily after school, but I think that's another place to reach people. And then just other local children's groups. We have a big Children Inc. Building right near us, and they're very involved in this area as well, so we're hoping we can link up with them as well. If you have any unique or interesting partnerships that you think is unique and you would like to share, I would love to hear them, because I think we're all always looking for new people to hook up with and program with. So I would love to hear your suggestions there. And of course, if you guys have any other questions, let me know, but that's about all I have for you today. There's my contact information. If you would like any of my materials, you're welcome to have any of that. Like if you said, oh, that Harry Potter quiz looks amazing, I will totally send it to you. Whatever you want from me, I'm happy to help, because we are stronger when we work together. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening while I babbled. And thank you very much to Krista for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Lauren. This was a power-packed hour, lots of great recommendations, and lots of fantastic conversation going on in the chat. So I don't want that to stop. Please feel free to keep on going, dropping links into the chat. We're also very interested. I think we've spurred a lot of ideas for future webinars and conference sessions. So please continue to drop those into the chat as well, and we will go ahead and plan out 2020 webinars while we're at it. I'm going to go ahead and move over to our wrap-up slides here. Just a quick reminder of some other resources available to you for free through the State Library and KDLA. I did drop a couple of links into the chat. Someone brought up the book series Loose Parts Play. Every library in the state of Kentucky should have actually received a set of those books through the School Ready Libraries grant that concluded in 2018. But if you can't get your hands on a copy, we have you covered at the State Library. So feel free to log on to KDLA's catalog. Here is a list of some recommended keywords and subject searches to pull up popular and new library science and early childhood texts. Also, the first place where you are going to learn about all of our new resources, from professional text to those thematic programming kits, are through the Kayak listserv. I'm assuming most of you all are already on that listserv, but if you have a new colleague who is not, please send in information on how to subscribe. It's a one-stop shop for all new resources, as well as state, regional, and national training opportunities. If you have a great question outside of these webinars and live training sessions, Kayak is your place to go. Just send us an email to the list and keep the discussion going. Also, don't forget that KDLA does have a youth services website where we also cross-post statewide training announcements, information about all of our book discussion and thematic program kits, as well as our performer showcase and an archive of the weekly Kayak newsletter. A reminder that you can find more webinars and live face-to-face workshops at KDLA's continuing education calendar, and that today's webinar and all trainings provided by KDLA are made possible in part by funding through the Library Services and Technology Act from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And I will be posting a link to an IMLS survey in the next few seconds. Would greatly appreciate you taking a couple of minutes out of your day to complete that. Don't forget, KDLA's Continuing Education and Library Development Branch is on Twitter and Facebook. And thank you for attending today's webinar. You can download the handouts from today's session at the bottom left-hand side of your screen, or you can also receive a copy along with your continuing education certificate and a link to the recording, which usually will arrive in your inbox within about 1 week of the live date. Thank you again to Lauren Branstetter from the Kenton County Public Library, and this is Krista King Oaks with the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives. Have a great day.